Now, it's really good to see more NFT marketplaces launch on the Cardano ecosystem. Now, this interview I did with the team from DropSpot, an actual Australian team that's building out a marketplace on the Cardano blockchain, and they're taking a slightly different approach in that they're going for curated art pieces, engaging with various artists from around the world, well-renowned artists that are already producing and making really cool things in the regular art space. And now they're transitioning them over to the Web3, the digital, the NFT art space, and doing some really amazing things on their NFT drops. Now, this interview is a little bit old, so bear with the content, but it is still really relevant, and they actually have launched their platform as well, so you can check it out. It's live, it's absolutely slick and beautiful. I really like what the guys have done, and also make sure you check out Helios. It's a really cool platform where you can actually build smart contracts on Cardano in a human readable way. So it's a really good approach of writing smart contracts. All right, let's get into it.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debate.
All right, I have a really interesting interview coming up here, and I'm joined by Stephen and Simon here from the project DropSpot, and I really wanted to dig into this one because they're doing something a little bit different in the curated NFT market space, and I want to find out a little bit more about what these guys are doing and what they're trying to achieve. So guys, welcome to the podcast.
Good on you, thanks Pete. Thanks for having us.
So can I get a little bit of a background from you guys to understand like how you got into the space? So Stephen.
Yeah, sure. Look, I've been working in technology across most of my career, across a range of different businesses. Really hooked up with Simon about nearly 12 months ago now, and got very deep into crypto and the NFT space. Simon been an avid user of NFTs and in the community for a long time, and really fell in love with Cardano and the technology and ethos behind the ecosystem, and just really excited to be releasing a project.
And what about yourself, Simon?
Hi, yeah, thanks Pete. Thanks for having us. Look, 20 years in technology and passion completely by the blockchain. A few years ago, I came into a position where I was able to sort of dedicate a lot more of my time into blockchain. I'm a Cardano maxi.
Cool.
Nice. Which is awesome. So very similar to Steve is I was attracted by basically the philosophy of Cardano as a blockchain and everything about it. And basically being tied up. I'm married to an artist, so I see NFTs as being a really good intersection between art and technology. So naturally impassioned to bring art bring art via NFTs into the Cardano ecosystem. Like it or love it or hate it, NFTs are the mainstream, or are the face of the blockchain to the mainstream. So anything that we can do to contribute to that and enhance is a good thing for both the artists and the ecosystem.
Brilliant. We'll get into some of the technical side of things with the build in the moment, but I would like to understand how you guys are different from the NFT marketplaces that we see at the moment in the Cardano ecosystem. There's so many at the moment, and there's one big dominant player. How are you going to get into this space?
I think that there's a lot of different projects running at the moment and coming out, which we naturally think is great for the ecosystem. It has been an environment where there has been obviously one dominant player, and we really respect the job that they've done, and they've created engagement in the community, which we think is great. But we've come from a very artist-centric or creator-centric basis. So we feel like the ecosystem is lacking high quality contemporary art, and that has been the sort of ethos of where we've started. So instead of having a marketplace initially which is open to everyone, we've concentrated very much on curating high quality artists. One of the things that we recognised when we started talking to high quality contemporary artists globally is that they were concerned when coming onto the blockchain of how they'd be perceived and who they'd be next to. So we have different areas to our store, but the contemporary art part of the store is very much focused on making sure we keep the quality high, really well curated, and make sure we've got art that people love and art that people want to buy.
Now, we were talking about this before. You're describing some of the artists that were coming on board. Like, could you talk about some of these names? Because, like, when I think contemporary artists, I might not know them. There might not be a household name, but you managed to get some really, really big names out there. And I could understand, like you were saying, they don't want to see their art next to a pixelated ape or something like that. So it's from their perception.
It's been a really interesting process, Pete. I suppose talking to artists, we've got their viewpoint of what they think of NFTs, and it's astounding. You know, a lot of flat wall artists who are producing amazing content. When we first started talking to them, the journey for them, they see cryptocurrency as Bitcoin. And us getting them to take the leap from Bitcoin to an NFT or an ecosystem like Cardano with an NFT with actual real world utility and use cases has been a big education process for us. We've managed to secure artists from around the world. We're working with an artist called Alice Labourial from Paris. We've got Leif Pajeski who's from Germany, who's from Berlin. We've got another artist from Munich. We're just about to launch with Tina Tooley, who's an artist from London. All who are enthusiasts about the space. But again, it's a combination for us of educating traditional artists and bringing them on board, as well as getting some people who are crypto natives.
Yep. Very, very cool. Now, so you were saying that your wife's artist herself. Like, how's she found being onboarded? I'm assuming you onboarded her into the NFT space.
No, she's too busy looking after our son at the moment. But it's been good. I guess having the viewpoint of a fine artist when we're talking about NFTs, it's good to get, and this is not only from myself, but what Alexi helps me to do is understand it from an artist's point of view.
Yeah.
And so when we're communicating to other artists, there's a sensitivity, there's misconceptions that Steve talked about that need to be addressed with NFTs as an ecosystem whole. There's also the broader question of what is an NFT? How does it relate to my art practice?
Yeah.
Does it devalue my work? Is it an extension of my work? So she's been a very good sounding board in that respect. And definitely where we've arrived at is, and this is being validated at the moment within the artistic community or the creator community, is that NFTs are now really being seen as a channel to a global audience. Now, be it, there's the utility that we talk about in the space, but with respect to artists, utility is a word that they don't necessarily understand. But once you start tying the NFT into what it can do for loyalty, what it can do for growing communities. Some of the products that we're building right now is tying up real world and physical goods with the artistic pieces, with the NFTs. So in terms of creating the interaction between an art practice, what it does for the end consumer, the extension out to a global audience, it's really helped us understand from an artist's perspective as how they see NFTs, what they want from it, and also with respect to how to explain it.
So can you give us an example? Like, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. Some of the artists would sell a piece for like a 20,000 or whatever per physical piece. So how are they changing from that physical piece to a series of like 100 or so to mint out to a community, and what extra utility are you adding to it to make it a little bit more interesting for them?
It's a great question. When we started working closely with artists and being a highly curated marketplace, we've got a great team that's dedicated in helping educate and work with artists. But we looked at releasing some really novel features, which I suppose helped artists create more NFTs than just a single one-to-one mint. So we were looking at a smaller series of say 100 pieces, which were then attached to a physical or real-world piece. So it might be a painting that was valued at $15,000, and you had the ability to turn one of those NFTs into a prize, which was the utility that was attached to the NFT. So, it kind of created a little bit of gamification, if you like, in the process, but really that was done in a really clever and unique way with high quality contemporary art. I think having competition-based things or competition-based programs running on blockchain is not a new thing, but I think we're doing it in a really clever and novel way, which we think will really drive engagement with the audience. So we're really excited to see how it goes.
Absolutely brilliant. Now, what about the technical side of things? Like, how did you guys go out building this? The whole building on Cardano has always been seen as hard. Like you got to learn Haskell, you got to learn Plutus and all that stuff. And, you know, with the Vassal hard fork and everything, you had to upgrade contracts. What has the development experience been like for you guys, and how are you building this out in general?
It's been interesting. Number one, having a highly skilled team has helped. Basically, the way we see it is we don't mind learning. We love, as a team, sort of looking at new technologies and adapting those, be it on the bleeding edge or not. Now, in all honesty, with everything I've done technically, this has been one of the most challenging projects.
Cool.
And that's and that's also expected to a degree, right? Yeah. Is we've got a brand new, like, hot out of the fire technology in Cardano blockchain. We've been with it the whole way. So we watched Mary released February 2021, which brought native assets to the blockchain, or to Cardano, so to speak, with the ETXO or EUTXO model. We saw then the smart contracts release in, was it July last year? Yeah. With respect to the Alonzo. It was delayed a little bit, but with respect to the Alonzo hard fork and smart contracts. Yeah. So we'd actually concepted the DropSpot application prior to that, and were waiting in anticipation for the technology to be released so that we could then build on top of that. Now, as the smart contracts came out, basically Cardano as an organisation was good in respect to the education and the Plutus Pioneers programs that they brought out. So we put our head tech Gavin onto the Plutus Pioneers program. So that was a steep learning curve in terms of getting our heads around Haskell, number one. Secondly, our heads around Plutus, which is a layer on top of Haskell. Yeah. Thirdly, the tooling. Yeah. So there was a lot of work in, number one, understanding the architecture of the Cardano smart contracts. We'd been educated in the past through how Ethereum works, right, in terms of how their contracts operate. And you bring along those concepts with you as new things are released. And Cardano took a very different approach in terms of the technology, where we have a validator approach of validating our transactions, and the smart contracts, act a lot more like a lockbox. So we went through the journey of learning all of that, architecting that, getting our heads around how to integrate that into a standard web application stack, and basically got to a point, a very good point earlier this year, in terms of how the application was running, interacting with Plutus V1 smart contracts. And then, of course, Vassal came along, which added a second set of challenges. Now they end up having commercial implications because we are developing to a cadence, and anything unexpected can have impacts. Yeah. With the catastrophic loss of testnet, which has now become a meme on its own. We were impacted. We had to respin our servers up. We had to retool. And we also had to learn about the new features that Vassal brought with respect to reference inputs, inline datums, and things like that. We had a crack basically at re-implementing our smart contracts at one point into Plutus V2, but ultimately stumbled across some really good frameworks with respect to how contracts are developed. We were talking earlier, and we know that there's a number out there. Yeah. Our one of choice ended up being Helios. Basically, that turned a language which is, very hard to understand into something that a lay person or a non-technical person is able to read. And that's the whole point of smart contracts, is that they can be inspected, they can be entrusted by the community, and if they can't be read, I think that's a big thing.
Because the idea is that you look at the smart contract and you say, oh, okay, yes, it's doing this, it's doing that, okay, verified.
That's
great.
Exactly right. Yeah.
But if you can't do that with a smart contract at the moment, then...
And if we're trusting somebody else to have done that audit without ourselves, there's still a transfer of trust in that respect.
Well, it's at the heart of the ethos of decentralisation, right? Having complete transparency, and I think Simon and the team have done an incredible job.
Yeah, trust and verify. But ultimately, what that ended up doing was lift our cadence rate. It lifted our confidence in the ability to test our work. It lifted our confidence in the ability to review and maintain our platform. Not only it reduced the ease of development, increased readability, which increases adoptability, which then further increases or decreases the cost of maintenance and change. Yeah. So they're all very good things. So not only do we have something that's easier to read, but something that's a whole lot more commercial. So I've been very, very, very excited about these frameworks coming out, not only so that I can read the contracts, but other people can, and that we can maintain and develop at a rate that makes commercial sense. So long answer to a short question, but mate, overall it's been a challenging experience, but we're very proud to learn the new skills in Cardano blockchain and to be developing in it.
So Helios is a thing. It's a good thing.
It's a great thing. And so thank you to the developers of Helios. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So now that you have your platform pretty much fleshed out, like is there a particular launch date that you're going to release this?
We're close, is what I can say.
Yeah.
We've got a phased approach. We've secured artists. We've been talking to artists and had artist outreach going for a long time. But we are very much about, Simon loves the word cadence, and we're very much about, having the right cadence and doing things properly. We don't want to be the kind of platform that's rushed to market, and we've got a very phased approach. So, starting with a really soft launch coming pretty soon, and then following that, we'll slowly start leaking out new product drops as we develop. But yeah, look, I think definitely the initial phase is something that we're very excited about, and then new and novel features will continue to be released as we go on.
Okay. And what about the continuous onboarding of new artists? How are you going to get more on board? Because this is a double-edged marketing play that you have to do. One, you have to market to artists to onboard these contemporary artists and build that side of the market, but then also build up the marketplace for people to come in and purchase all these things, these NFT pieces. So there's two plays you have to do. So how are you going to onboard the more contemporary artists around the world? Where are your connections coming from? And then how are you going to build the rest of the ecosystem around it?
I think credibility is a big thing for us. Artist outreach is an ongoing thing for us. We're really fortunate to have a great team. Laura Richardson, some of you have probably seen her. It's me, Queenie, who's our resident sort of curator. Has got a lot of experience in working with artists, and we're continuing to always engage, but in the right way. We want to be able to, as I said, educate artists and take them on the journey, on their NFT journey. And it's not as much as us just saying, although naturally, as the store gets more recognition, we'll see artists coming in and just self-minting themselves. And even though it is an invite-only curated platform at the moment, but we will naturally see that stuff start to occur, which is great for us. But we also like getting in and really working deep with the artists as well. What does a collection look like for you? Always respecting, artistic, flair and ideas comes from the artist, and understanding that, but really trying to help them understand, what they can do and what kind of collection they can put together, and what we think will also work for them.
Yeah, and I just add to that, and I always come across from a technical perspective as well. But in terms of onboarding into the ecosystem, how do I start participating in a Web3 application? So we've thought long and hard about that. It's generally one of the more complicated things to build, onboarding. It's something that's often overlooked, but what we have done from a minting perspective, so we've got what we call our creator launchpad, which very, very simply allows creators to come on and mint collections, and mint relatively large size collections, but directly into smart contracts. So it's a one-click mint into a smart contract for sale, which will appear on our marketplace. One of the things bringing, I'd say, new creators or anyone new to Web3 into the ecosystem, the first thing they have to do is acquire the native currency. Yeah. And that generally relies upon them hitting one of the centralized exchanges, KYCing, purchasing cryptocurrency, and then the step to then send that to their native wallet. Right.
It's quite a process.
It's quite a process, yeah. And I keep on
using... It's daunting for some people.
I keep using the analogy. It's generally the first time I get a phone call from anybody that I've inadvertently encouraged into crypto.
What do you make me do? Why do I have to put my driver's license to this thing? Yeah.
What it boils down to is I've sent my money from X and X exchange to my native wallet. It hasn't arrived yet. What the fuck's happened?
And of course they put in like thousands of dollars for the first
thing. Right. It's not there yet where it is. And that's a position of anxiety. And that's not the position or the headspace that we want anybody entering into our application having gone through that.
Exactly right.
Let alone the lead time that takes. So one of the things that we've done is we are minting for free. There is no need to hold ADA to actually do a mint transaction. There's no need.
Right.
There's no need for the artists that we bring, or the creators that we bring on board, to put down credit card details. That invite not only has I guess a control over quality and making sure that we really bring in genuine artists and the system isn't abused. So it's creating the club. But the thing that I really see as a big benefit there is that they can literally come along, create a show and mint it. The first currency that they get will be from their sold NFTs. So there's no requirement to set up or have the anxiety around putting credit card details into a brand new system. So just UX is a big thing, right? It's not only the interface that you develop, but also the experience that you bring to the end user. And so we've really taken time to think through what does a new creator look like to our application and how can we facilitate that. And yeah, there's a lot of other applications that are working in that space too, but that's our little spin on it. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I remember sitting in Vegas going to CNFT-Con, right, one of the events, and I was telling the taxi driver, what we're doing. I was sharing the cab with Blake NFT.
Yeah.
And we were trying to explain to the taxi driver, okay, he was really interested in NFTs. Where do we start? And like, oh boy, yeah, you got to sign up for an exchange and do all this stuff. And if for us, because we're native, we forget about that part. Yeah. It's just something that we do. Yeah, but for someone brand new, that onboarding process is terrible.
It's horrible. Yeah. And the rules. I mean, we obviously, we're across the legislation. There's things that can be relatively easily done, right, in terms of helping a new user too. But all of a sudden, that turns us into an exchange. As far as Australian law is concerned, is we can't be exchanging ADA for fiat currency with people. There has to be sort of unique ways of onboarding and encouraging people into the Web3 ecosystem.
Yeah, I think the barrier to entry for artists coming on board too, if we look at other chains too, so, you're putting a collection out on OpenSea or on Foundation or, there's a cost and risk attached to minting a collection because of the gas fees. So for an artist coming on board, the questions that they're asking themselves is, hang on a second, I don't really understand this marketplace. I'm also going to attract quite significant fees in terms of minting a collection. I don't know whether my collection is going to sell. All of these are inhibitors and barriers to entry. And we wanted to break down that wall and make it easy for artists to come on board and make it easy for people to create and welcome people into the ecosystem. We're massive believers in Cardano. And, we believe that adoption from other chains is something that we really, really would like to encourage. Every chain's got its place and we get that there are different chains that offer different things, but the current low gas fees on Cardano really means that we can invite people who probably would never have really explored the space because of those risks. So that's something that we think is a really unique feature of the platform. And come on board. Send us your art. We'd love to look at it.
That's a beautiful way of onboarding artists. It's like you said, takes away all the risk, and it's like a no-brainer for them. Like if they have good pieces and they're ready to go, you just onboard them through that process it's like private invite only, right?
That's exactly And we've integrated with Twitter, Discord, Instagram, and also mobile phone, although we don't encourage that as much. But in terms of the secure way of coming into the system, there's ways of ensuring that you're quickly onboarded based upon a quick two-step verification. Yep.
Absolutely brilliant. Okay. Yep. So launches soon.
Yep.
Not yet. Okay.
Can we just say imminent?
We might want to caveat that in terms of again, there's been lots of I'd only call it crap or shit in the ecosystem in terms of rug pulls and false promises. And look, we're a big believer of letting our work talk for us.
Yeah.
So we've definitely taken a softer approach in terms of marketing this and the engagement. We really wanted to get the platform up so that people could actually play with it, look and feel, and get an understanding. And that will speak our words for us to a degree. Help us with the credibility, help us with penetrating the market, help us introducing ourselves to the community, help us engaging with new creators. And once that's up there, we really look forward to accelerating that through.
I do prefer the MVP approach, having something out there so people can play with before you start hyping it and saying and promising the world.
Absolutely.
Having been through it just recently, look, I feel for other projects. We realise that there's other projects coming to Cardano, and we feel like creating a robust ecosystem that we all work on to grow together. As a group is something that brings adoption to Cardano. But there's a real chicken and egg scenario that occurs with this. We're having conversations with artists, and if they can't look, see, and touch something, then although they're really interested in the process, it's kind of about going live first. So as Simon said, we've taken a super soft approach for go live. We've worked with some artists who we think are really provide really great work and great examples of what our store is going to look like, and we're open to artist applications from now.
All right, brilliant, guys. Thank you so much for joining me to explain the marketplace and talk all about it. I'm pretty excited to see the artist's work that comes through, so it's going to be absolutely amazing to finally get my hands on this one and have a play. So thank you so much for joining me on this interview.
Great. Awesome, thanks. Good on you, Pete. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Cheers, mate.
Like always, all the show notes for you guys in the video notes description down below. You can also get to it on our website at learncardano.io. If you prefer to listen to this on an audio podcast, this is all uploaded online now to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere where you like to consume your audio podcasts. All right, that's it for me for this episode. If you really enjoyed it, thumbs up, subscribe, click the notification bell, and you hear more from me real soon.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really is.